This episode of Circle City Conversations addresses serious and sensitive issues relating to federal immigration enforcement and use of force incidents. While no video is shown, we discuss publicly available footage to provide important context to our listeners. We at Circle City Conversations believe in the rule of law as well as our United States Constitution. Our nation was founded on the basic idea that government shall not have limitless power, and when they overstep their bounds, there will be accountability. We aim to empower the community with knowledge to protect themselves and hold authorities accountable under the law. Our purpose is to inform you of your legal rights and what steps you can take if you experience or witness abuse of power by federal agents such as ICE. Let me be clear, this is not political. Every person in this country, Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, has an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And here is this week's episode of Circle City Conversations. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Circle City Conversations. My name is Alex Limontes. I am the host of this show. I am here with attorney Chase Wilson from the law firm of Hurst Limontes. Chase handles cases including personal injury cases, but has recently branched off and started working on some civil rights violation cases and cases involving governmental entities kind of overstepping their bounds. And speaking of governmental entities overstepping their bounds, that's what we're here to talk about today. Chase, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So this episode today, we're going to focus on some of the recent developments, particularly when it comes to federal immigration authorities here in the United States, and some of the particularly some of the actions, let's say, that they're taking against the people of the United States, regardless of whether it's in Minnesota or many of the other places, that have dealt with a lot of these issues. So I do want to focus a little bit on Minneapolis, though, and Minnesota in particular. And can you briefly summarize to me and to our listeners what happened in the recent federal immigration enforcement actions in Minneapolis, including the shootings of Rene and Alex Peretti?
Yeah, so focusing on those two incidents, unfortunately or fortunately, there are videos of all of it. Most of the listeners and most people, I think, have seen it. That's not a good thing. I have to watch those videos all the time, and they're not fun to watch, and I wish nobody ever had to watch them. But Rene Good, from what I can tell in the videos, and I've reviewed several of them, she was stuck on the side of the road and diagonally. And then some ICE agents came over. They seemed to be trying to help other people who were also stuck out. And then she starts to get free at some point, and then other vehicles pull out from behind her. And she waves them through, and you can see that on her recording and on some other recordings. And then after those vehicles go by, or at about the same time, another ICE truck, a Nissan Titan, pulls up, and those agents get out and immediately start trying to open her door. I have no idea why. The other ICE agents seemed to be okay with her being there and what she was doing. They start to try to open her door and tell her to get out of the car, which I'm not sure they have any authority to do at that point. And then she backs up and then turns her wheel to the right, starts to drive forward. And an officer who had previously been on her passenger side come around the front, and once she turns right, is kind of diagonal to her vehicle, starts firing. He claims that he feared for his life. I won't go into my opinions on that too much. But there are videos out there that share the trajectory of the bullets and where he would have been standing at the time it was fired. The other incident with Alex Peretti, He was just out recording ICE officers making these arrests of who they believed were illegal immigrants. He's there for several minutes. He's seen recording them with his phone. He's showing them. He's holding it up, showing his phone that they're recording him. There's nothing else in his hands. The ICE officers eventually start to kind of shove him away. And then he and another woman he's with get pepper sprayed. And then when he gets back up, the officer takes him to the ground. And then there are 5 or 6 officers kind of wrestling with him on the ground.
Yeah.
And then one of them stands up and fires.
Okay.
And then another 3 shots get fired. And then you see Alex go to his back, limp, and another 6 shots are fired after that. The officers in that one have alleged that he had a gun, which it sounds like he does, or he did, but he never presented it. From what I can see in the videos, he never had it in his hand, and it actually looks like one of the ICE officers had unholstered it and taken it away prior to any of the shots being fired. You can see him reach down, grab it out of the holster, turn, and walk away, and then a couple seconds later, the first shot is fired. So at the time, he was completely unarmed, and it's the Second Amendment is there for a reason. You're allowed to be armed.
So you mentioned some factual scenarios using a vehicle and then someone that was armed and then, later on disarmed, or at least there's a question of whether they were disarmed. And you've ran across these types of situations before, right?
Absolutely.
But never involving federal immigration authorities. Is that correct?
Correct. I've never had a federal case with excess force, and in the Seventh Circuit, it's nearly impossible to do so.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. You've had cases against state, local, governmental authorities.
Correct. Yeah.
And in those cases, you are allowed to bring a federal claim under Section 1983.
Yes, for any constitutional rights violation. So any civil rights violations, you can sue under 1983, whether it be excess force under the Fourth Amendment or denial of medical care under the Eighth Amendment. And you get, as long as it's state and local officials.
Anything, for example, from Plainfield Correctional Facility failing to treat provide medical care, or a small town police department in Corydon, Indiana, taking down a 78-year-old man.
Yeah.
With a little too much force. So, however, those claims and those cases are different in federal court.
Correct.
Excuse me. Those cases are different if the agency that committed this act is a federal agency.
Correct.
Okay.
So Section 1983, the way it's 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, it's a federal statute, allows private citizens to file suit for constitutional rights violations by state and local actors. So state and local police, your county jails, those sorts of things. It doesn't explicitly allow that same cause of action for federal officers.
Okay.
So it's not applicable, and the Supreme Court's ruled on that. There was a case called Bivens, where the Supreme Court, back in, I think it was 1979, said you can bring an action against individual officers the same way you would under 1983. You can bring those same actions against those individual officers if they're federal officers, because it's a constitutional rights violation. But since then, the court has
kind of whittled that down.
I don't even want to say whittled it down, almost destroyed the entire.
So it's basically non-existent.
Yeah, they've continually restricted it and said, okay, there was Bivens, and then there were 2 other cases that were decided, and then starting in I think 82, there was a line of, and specifically with the Roberts Court now, there have been a line of cases that said, okay, anything we hadn't already said, you can definitely sue on. Now it would create a new cause of action, or it would rely on new theories, and you can't do that.
Okay.
So there was one case, one of the most famous cases. There's a case in Texas where an immigration officer fired a shot at a little boy who was actually on the Mexico side of the border.
Oh my God.
And killed him. And the court said you can't sue under Bivens.
Wow.
For that, because it would create a new cause of action.
And so let's talk about what people could potentially do. Let's talk about Rene Good's family and Alex Peretti's family. We know Rene Good left a child, and in Indiana that would be a general wrongful death case. So what are some of the things that some of these grieving family members can do to seek some accountability?
Yeah, and first I want to say my deepest sympathies go out to the families of both of these individuals. These are horrible situations. Whether you agree or disagree with how the ICE agents reacted, I think everybody can grieve for the families. But as far as what she can do, um, her best option is probably a Federal Tort Claims Act case.
Hmm.
Um, I said earlier that in the Seventh Circuit, that's nearly impossible, and it is. But I did a little research. In the Eighth Circuit, there's almost certainly a cause of action that you can go after there. You file it under the Federal Tort Claims Act, uh, and and then the other side is going to allege they're entitled to qualified immunity, or they're going to allege that it was a discretionary function. So you have to overcome both. In the Seventh Circuit, you can't overcome the discretionary function argument because the Seventh Circuit has decided the use of force is a discretionary function, even if it was excessive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's already case law in India or in the seventh.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there are holes in that, and there are ways you could attack it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, in the Seventh Circuit, you can't sue a federal officer for excess force, even under the Federal Tort Claims Act. You definitely can't do it under 1983 because the Supreme Court said no. In the Eighth Circuit, though, I think you can.
Okay.
So she could file a claim under the Federal Tort Claims Act. To do that, you've got to send notice to the agency within 2 years. And you and I have done this before with different facts, like a mail carrier,
like a post
USPS truck hitting somebody. It's the same. You do the same thing. So you send the tort claim notice. Within 2 years, they have 6 months to respond. And then if they don't respond, you can file suit.
This is different than an Indiana tort claim, right?
Yeah, I remember the first time we had a federal tort
form.
claims case. Yeah, there's a form. You fill it out. You actually have to make your demand at that point. You can't just say, hey, this happened and I'm putting you on notice.
Mm-hmm.
You also have 2 years instead of 180 days.
Yep.
So it's very different. So she could try a Bivens action under essentially it's a 1983 action except against federal actors. But that's been limited by the Supreme Court. So I doubt they'd be successful on that. The Federal Tort Claims case, though, I think could and would be successful in the Eighth Circuit.
And I know you're not licensed in Minnesota, but let's change it from Minneapolis to Indianapolis. If this occurred in Indiana, are there state law claims that you could potentially make?
You could attempt to make state law claims. I think you would run into the exact same defenses, though.
Oh, okay.
Because they're federal actors, even if you made a state law claim, they would claim that they're either entitled to qualified immunity because they weren't aware that whatever they did was a Constitution or a violation of the Constitution, or that it was a discretionary function because Indiana's Tort Claims Act has that same discretionary function exception. And that's difficult to get around when the Seventh Circuit has already said that the use of force is a discretionary function.
Yeah. So going back to these Minneapolis cases, the federal officials have claimed self-defense.
Yeah.
And you said something that was interesting earlier because you mentioned that Rene Good was stuck on the side of the road.
Yeah.
I think some people have argued that she was blocking federal authorities.
Yeah, which is weird because you can see cars driving by her.
Yeah. So that's a factual determination.
Yeah.
So left to the person that's determining those. But I want to ask you about that. So in these Minneapolis cases, these federal officials have claimed self-defense while others dispute that narrative, like you said. How are such conflicting accounts typically analyzed under the law?
Yeah, so in every one of these cases I've ever been involved in, the other side is going to file what's called a motion for summary judgment at some point. And they're going to say, here are the facts as we believe them. And based on these facts in the law, you should dismiss this case. And then we, as the plaintiff side, get to make the argument that there's a genuine issue of material fact. There's something that affects that analysis, or there is some fact that impacts what law is applicable.
Yep.
So those disputes, in fact, are going to be the basis for whatever plaintiff's attorney's argument that there are genuine issues of material fact and summary judgment can't be granted here, which will then allow the case to proceed to trial.
Usually, if you can overcome summary judgment in these cases, can you usually find a resolution to them?
Most of the time, you're going to find a resolution. These cases are incredibly susceptible to what we call nuclear verdicts.
Yes.
If you end up in front of the right jury on one of these cases, a $500,000 excess force case, not a death case, but a dog bite or something could easily turn into a $10 million verdict.
Yeah.
Because the jury is mad,
Yes.
right? Especially in Minneapolis.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen pictures of thousands of people on the streets.
Yeah. So anyway, but once you survive summary judgment in these cases, normally the other side is going to make an offer that makes sense. Before that, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes during the pendency of the summary judgment.
During the pendency of the summary judgment, sometimes it settles. Most of those cases are the ones that the other side has filed summary judgment but knows they're going to lose on. And even before they file it, that they're going to lose on it, but they have to file it anyway. They're doing their jobs. And I've even had a few where they've forgone filing summary judgment and just said, hey, let's settle this. Our guy definitely messed up here. Let's get it done. But for the most part, you're going to have to survive summary judgment, and then they're going to make a substantial offer.
And even before that, you're reviewing hours upon hours of body cam footage, and then you probably have to take at least half a dozen depositions, right?
Oh, at least. So you're going to, a lot of these cases, like you talked about earlier, depend on the facts.
Yeah.
And if there are disputes in facts. So if there's 6 different officers there, if you're doing your job, you're going to go depose all 6 of them.
Correct.
They might all have slightly different versions of what occurred, and those slightly different versions might create a genuine issue of material fact that keeps your case alive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to take a lot, and it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
Watch a lot of video over and over and over again. And none of that video is fun to watch.
My family immigrated here from Cuba after Fidel Castro took over, and this government took everything from my family, and that attracted me to be a lawyer. Insurance companies can be like bullies, and they have a lot of resources behind them. Give us a call here at Alex Limontes. We are protective of our clients because our clients matter and you matter. At Alex Limontes, we're a firm that believes in people. We don't just talk about justice or fairness, we live it. The Indiana Fever are trailblazers. They inspire not only in how they play, but how they lead in our Indiana community. Being a father changes everything. Supporting the Fever is one way that I show my kids what it means to believe in fairness, to believe in respect and possibility. At Alex Limontes, we believe in those same things. The Fever stand for resilience, grit, determination, and heart. They aren't just a basketball team. They're a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to give up. Their impact ripples far beyond the court, and you can see it in the energy, pride, and hope that they create in our city. Whether you're a young girl dreaming of playing in the WNBA or a kid in a small town dreaming of becoming a lawyer, you belong. This partnership is proof of that. At Alex Limontes, we believe in standing up for those people that are overlooked. From court to court, Alex Limontes is your winning team. I want to ask you some hypotheticals here, and let's apply these to Indiana. Okay?
Yeah.
Imagine a federal immigration enforcement operation in Indianapolis, which is very possible.
Yeah.
And imagine there's one going on in Indianapolis or even central Indiana. Under what circumstances could ICE conduct arrests or raids here in Indiana, and what limits apply under Indiana law?
Yeah, so oddly enough, a lot of it's controlled by federal law. So I didn't know this until I started researching the ICE raids and these excess force cases or potential excess force cases by ICE. They are allowed to make warrantless arrests of anyone they suspect may be an illegal immigrant.
Okay.
And one of the problems is it's not defined as to what gives them probable cause to believe someone might be an illegal immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, it seems to be skin color or the language they're speaking.
That's yeah.
Uh, there are plenty of U.S. citizens who speak Spanish.
Hmm.
Um, but so they're allowed to make warrantless arrests if they believe that you're an illegal immigrant or that you might be. As far as their ability to conduct these raids, this is kind of what's thrown me. They're still held to the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Okay.
They still can't make illegal searches and seizures of private property.
Yep.
Which is why I think you haven't seen them going in like they did before to large factories and things.
Yeah.
I know when this happened, I think during the first Trump term, there were raids of
Yeah.
factories and warehouses and things. I'm assuming they got search warrants for those. It was done a little bit more meticulously and probably legally. But they don't need those warrants for public places, which is why you're now seeing them in schools and libraries and courthouses.
I see.
And anywhere else, they don't have to obtain a search warrant. That's public land. That's public property. But they do still have to have it to go on private land, or I'd argue within your car, which we've seen a lot of them pulling people out of their cars, searching their cars without a warrant. I'm guessing that falls under their ability to arrest someone without a warrant. They're now searching the vehicle they'll claim to make sure that they're safe. There are no weapons in it. But for the most part, the warrantless arrest thing is an issue. They can make a completely warrantless arrest with an undefined probable cause. And if you're in a public place, they don't need a search warrant.
Yeah. So that's probably why I've seen videos of them surrounding houses where people are working on construction sites and things. You mentioned earlier, we were talking about Rene Good.
Yeah.
You mentioned the officers said he feared for his life, and we're talking about these factual disputes, and even going back to the fact that you said they were stuck on the road, and some may argue she was blocking traffic. So really, the question, I guess, is that the standard for the officer to be able to use that type of deadly force? Would he have to fear for his life, or she?
Yeah, so it's a reasonableness standard.
That's the question.
Yeah,
right?
it's a reasonableness standard. But
Okay.
in order for his use of deadly force to be reasonable, he has to have fear. There has to be a fear of imminent serious bodily injury or death to himself or another.
Okay.
In the Supreme Court, and I know in the Seventh Circuit, a vehicle has been determined to be a deadly weapon.
Yes.
Can be used as a deadly weapon. So if he reasonably thought that she was going to run him over,
Mm-hmm.
then his use of force, according to the law, is allowed. The issue in that case will be, does a court believe his use of force was reasonable, or is there a genuine issue of material fact as to whether his use of force was reasonable?
Okay.
I think there probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a similar case in Indiana, just last year, where a woman was in her car and officers were surrounding her, and
Why were they there? Why were they surrounding her?
I don't want to talk about it too much.
Okay.
Uh,
But they were there. They
Yeah.
received a call.
yeah. But she was in her car and they were surrounding her, and as she was driving toward or past them, officers began to fire.
I see.
And the case law, at least again, not an Eighth Circuit expert. I practice in the Seventh Circuit. So I know the Seventh Circuit law.
What, Wisconsin?
I know Minnesota is. That's about all I know. I'd assume Wisconsin is as well. Maybe Michigan.
Yeah.
But at least in the
Yeah.
Seventh Circuit, there were two ways we were able to attack that. One was that the officer put himself in the danger. So in our case, the officer had moved from where he would have been safe, even the
Side of the zone of danger.
even if he had just stayed where he was, even if the woman drove straight, he was out of the way, and he had moved to in front of the vehicle. So the Seventh Circuit has said that if an officer puts himself in danger, he can't then claim that there was a threat of serious bodily harm or death. But then there's also case law in the Seventh Circuit that where the bullet enters the vehicle is important.
Oh, so they even go that deep into the factual.
Well, yeah, and in any of these cases, the state police here in Indiana have done an investigation. Their forensics, they've got the models of where the bullets went in and all of those things, so you know what happened for the most part. Um, if the bullet goes in the windshield, then it lends towards the officer's argument that there was an imminent threat because it's
Standing right in front of the vehicle.
standing in front of it. If it comes in through the side
Right.
or at an angle, then we've
shoot
got a
from
problem.
the
And
car.
that'll be the interesting part in the Rene Good case is the first bullet, I believe, went in through the windshield, but at an angle.
Yeah.
So it's kind of right in between those two already defined areas of wall.
Yeah.
It went through the front window, but it came at an angle, which shows that the officer was off to the side when he fired. But at that time, can he claim that he believed serious bodily injury or death was going to occur? Maybe. That happens pretty quick.
I would say at a minimum, I mean, based on the video that I saw, at a minimum, there's a factual question there.
Yeah, I think it
should
is.
be left to the jury.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you talked about this kind of reasonable, standard,
Yeah.
reasonableness. And when you say that, you don't just mean the person's subjective
Right.
beliefs, right?
Right.
Not just because everyone has their own subjective beliefs. And the reality is, we're sitting here talking about this, and this is a very politically charged thing.
Yeah.
Issue. And even when you and I talk about cases or we go on the news about cases against the police, people take a political stance against cases against the police. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about politics. It's about a level of accountability and upholding our Constitution.
Yeah.
Which is the basis for any of these cases is contained within that document that both sides, left, right, even people in the middle, hold dear. So considering this, going back to my question about subjectiveness, because people have their own beliefs, is the reasonableness standard determined just on the subjective beliefs, or is there something else that goes into that analysis?
So yeah, it's an objective reasonableness standard. So it's a reasonable officer in the shoes of the officer involved.
Okay. So not what that person was thinking at the time.
Yeah, and
Okay.
oddly enough, the objective standard and it goes both ways. If you're a plaintiff's attorney on those cases, so often we get the officer says, "I feared for my life," and defense counsel says, "Well, he feared for his life. Subjective reasonableness. He feared for his life. He could use deadly force," and they know that's not how it works. He has to objectively. It has to be an objectively reasonable fear of his life. But that works two different ways. So a lot of the time we're able to say, okay, this officer said he feared for his life, but based on everything that we know, that the belief wasn't reasonable. There are other times, though, that an officer will say he feared for his life for one reason that we can show wasn't reasonable. But there is another reason that he hasn't mentioned that is reasonable, and the court will use that to say even if he didn't realize it, his subjective belief, he didn't realize he was at an imminent threat of death or bodily harm. Objectively, he was.
So
the deadly force was reasonable.
I see.
So it's a double-edged sword. But I think it's the right standard.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every time an officer shot somebody, they would just say they feared for their lives.
Yeah.
And then there's no recourse.
What protections under Indiana state law might apply to bystanders or observers during a federal enforcement action that go beyond federal law protections?
Yeah. And I've gotten this question quite a bit. So the Indiana Constitution almost mirrors the U.S. Constitution. So the same protections you have there, the right to peacefully assemble and protest and all of those things are going to apply. The Fourth Amendment protections against search and seizure. Now, there are some state law claims, and I've seen other attorneys argue these, and we make these claims when we filed 1983 cases too. We filed them as constitutional rights violations, but also assault and battery cases.
Yeah.
In case we lose the 1983 action, we may be able to fall back down to state court and still maintain an assault and battery case.
Yeah.
So
There may not be coverage on that assault and battery, though. Is that right? Or
most of the time, a lot of these departments are self-insured.
okay.
So there's not that issue of coverage that we run into all the time. And then there's also, we've run into this in coverage arguments. The insurer knows who they're insuring.
Yeah.
And they know if they're insuring a police department, there are going to be claims for excess force, whether they're warranted or not. So for them to try to say they don't cover it because it was
Well, it's like
intentional.
security company.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That was my argument. I was like, you guys knew who you were insuring, and you're basically saying we're not going to insure them against the one thing their job is to do to protect.
Yeah, that case still aggravates me.
Why are you selling insurance to a security company?
Yeah, I've never had, but even the cases where the departments are insured, I've never had a defense attorney or the insurance company for the police department say, we don't cover it because it was intentional.
Yeah.
So
they have all that protection.
their policies are
Yeah. Well, they have enough protections under qualified immunity and other.
right. If I get through that, and then you try to fight me on coverage, we're gonna fight.
So, what responsibilities do you think local government officials, even prosecutors, have when federal agencies are conducting enforcement actions within their jurisdictions?
So this is something that I've thought a lot about, and I think you have too. Local police departments and local officials are allowed to arrest federal agents if they're violating the law.
Yep.
Now there's some gray area there if they're carrying out their duties.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're carrying out their duties, but in an unconstitutional way that violates the law. Now, can you arrest them?
Yeah,
I think yes. So what's their responsibility to hold everybody accountable to the law or to the Constitution, whether it happens to be an ICE agent who has some badge and a mask, or Joe Schmo on the street.
Mm-hmm.
If they're battering someone,
Right.
arrest them.
Exactly. What legal standards or safeguards do you think should be in place to avoid misuse of force and protect civil liberties during these immigration enforcement actions?
That's hard. Because ICE has expanded so quickly.
Correct.
I think you have a lot of agents that have either a significant lack of training, or I have a feeling at some point it's going to come out almost no training.
Yeah. And no understanding either
No,
of what their job is.
no, and these aren't constitutional law scholars, right?
Right.
No one knows where they come from. At least in Indiana, these officers all have to go to the law enforcement academy. They all have to do pre-basic. Everyone I've questioned knows Graham v. Connor, which is the case that the U.S. Supreme Court decided the reasonableness standard and the excess force law. They at least all know that.
Yeah.
And they receive significant training in how searches and seizures are supposed to be carried out and what they can and can't do. I don't think that's happening with the ICE agents, or if it is, they're completely ignoring the training based on what I've seen. There has to be actual training.
Yeah.
The training that I'm sure ICE agents went through before, when there weren't a million of them.
Yeah.
And honestly, the biggest thing is the local authorities getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard a lot about from the current president and administration about local authorities need to work with ICE. Part of that is making sure they're not doing things they're not supposed to as well.
Right. Yes.
So you can't invite local authorities to come and assist and then tell them, well, but if we do something that we're not supposed to, just look the other way.
Yeah.
So I think it's up to local authorities too. I wish the training were better, but that's not going to improve. Local authorities certainly can step up, though, and start enforcing laws, start protecting people.
Right.
Like they're supposed to. I know it's hard, but I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have an administration that's going to punish you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might be disappeared.
Yeah. So for Hoosiers here in Indiana, what should people know about their rights if they observe or are near some kind of a federal immigration enforcement action?
My biggest piece of advice would be record everything. Record every. There was Jon Stewart had an episode the other night of is it the Daily? Yeah, the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, where he talked about the fact that video evidence of things that you think other people might try to lie about later is the most powerful thing you can have. You've seen the federal government and DHS come out in the Rene Good and the Alex Petty case and say these things happened that video evidence clearly didn't. So imagine if there, in his takeaway was, imagine if there wasn't video, what they'd tell you.
Right.
There is video that you can see what they're telling you is wrong and they're still telling you. So record everything, know your rights. Write down, if you're going to go to these protests and go research a few civil rights lawyers in the state of Indiana. There aren't a lot of us.
Yeah.
Go Google civil rights lawyers in Indiana. Write a couple phone numbers down.
Yeah.
Go write down a couple phone numbers.
Yeah. And criminal lawyers too.
Yeah, criminal lawyers.
You get arrested for no reason.
Yeah, I do constitutional rights, civil rights violations. Criminal lawyers know the Constitution way better than I do.
Yeah.
It's what they live and breathe. But yeah, I would, if you're going to go to these protests, make sure you're recording, make sure that you have some numbers of civil rights lawyers written down. Make sure that you have somebody who knows where you are, where you're going. Maybe put a GPS tracker on your phone that's
something like that.
Life tag. I mean, there are people being arrested that clearly aren't illegal immigrants and they're just gone for 72 hours.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have people that are exercising their Second Amendment right. I mean, you would normally be able to say that, don't bring your gun, but I don't know. I who knows if that's even safe, especially here in Indiana where people are very proud.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
Carry their,
it's not out of the ordinary for me to walk into a pizza place and I can see 3 people open carry.
yes.
Right?
Yes.
But that's Indiana. This is a conservative state.
It is.
Backs the Second Amendment, right?
Yeah.
And Minnesota, I believe, is a fairly pro-Second Amendment state.
Yes.
So I don't understand everyone coming to the defense of the ICE agent, especially in Alex Petty's case, saying, well, he had a gun.
Right.
Yeah.
So do a lot of people in Minnesota.
Yeah, he has the right to carry a gun.
He does. So
as long as he didn't point it at anybody.
Right.
I don't understand the issue.
So if someone in Indiana, and we represent a lot of Hispanics and Latinos here.
Yeah.
And if someone here in Indiana believes their rights were violated during some kind of federal law enforcement action, what immediate steps should they take to protect their legal interests?
Again, record everything as you do it. Call a good criminal defense lawyer. If you get a phone call, though, it's being reported in a lot of these cases. They aren't being given access to a phone call or really being afforded any due process, which is a whole other problem. Again, make sure somebody knows where you're at, so that if you're just gone, someone knows where you were.
Yeah,
and can make inquiries. Make sure you have a list of civil rights attorneys. Make sure you have a list of criminal defense attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you don't need one, but if you do, you'd rather have the information before this than after.
Yeah.
As far as protecting your rights, it's incredibly difficult when the current administration is essentially saying they don't have to afford due process rights to illegal immigrants, which is blatantly false.
Correct.
The Constitution says all persons within the U.S., not all citizens.
Yes.
A due process is required. I don't know where the administration gets these things. But it's hard to tell anybody what to do to protect themselves in these situations when we're not acting in accordance with the Constitution.
And you raise an interesting issue about due process, because one of the things that there's a lot of information circulating across the internet. And one of the things that I've seen about these, them entering a home, is that they have to show a warrant.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's so ICE can make warrantless arrests, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And they can go into public areas.
Right.
But if they want to enter private property, they still have to obtain a warrant.
Signed by a judge, a federal judge.
Yeah, it has to be a real warrant. It can't just be a piece of paper that they wave that says warrant. Right. It has to be signed. Yeah. You can't,
weren't, guys.
yeah, you can't pull a suits trick play and tell somebody that you have an affidavit signed by somebody and it's not signed. Um, it's got to be a real warrant to enter. But then they stand on people's porches and knock on their doors over and over again and tell them they have to let them in, they have to let them in, or they just start opening doors and going in. They can't do that.
Yeah, it's
A violation of the Fourth Amendment.
No, you can't. You know, Ariane told me this morning, she said, because there was that 5-year-old kid on the news, you saw him.
Mm-hmm.
She said that they were using him to get people to try to come out of the house.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. So another piece of advice, man, if that's happening in Indiana, if it ends up happening here, which I'm sure it will,
Yeah.
if somebody
Indianapolis, it's
coming,
blue.
and I think it's coming to Indianapolis very soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But
But if someone comes and knocks on your door, make sure it's locked and don't open it.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, we've seen it. Their ICE agents just, if you crack it, they're just shoving it in and they're coming to get it.
they're done. Yeah.
Keep it locked so they don't have a way in.
Yeah.
That's the best way to protect yourself in those situations.
Don't shoot through it.
Yeah, don't.
We had that situation
don't do
as
that.
well. So
Don't shoot
don't shoot through the locked
doors.
door.
But don't willingly open the door.
Yes.
If nothing else, then you give them an argument that you gave them some sort of implied permission to come on in.
Correct.
Don't do that. Don't give them any inkling of consent.
And like you said, have a list of emergency contacts ready to go.
Yeah.
A lot of criminal defense attorneys know really good civil rights lawyers.
We work with several.
We work with several. If you're listening to the show right now, you know that we've got civil rights lawyers here. We know plenty of them, regardless of the type of situation. We want to make sure you get to the right place to help protect your interests. And the reality is that from a legal practice standpoint, attorneys, we are mobilizing to try to help each other. We see the problem and we are willing to step forward and help, but we can't help if people don't come to us and tell us what's going on what's going on in their community.
Yeah. And to the mobilization portion of that, there aren't enough lawyers doing civil rights law in the state of Indiana. There are 10 of us that I know of. It's probably less than that do plaintiff civil rights law. If you're somebody that happens to be watching this and you don't agree with what's currently happening, or you're interested in practicing civil rights law, if I could talk, give me a call. I'd be happy to help. I've had mentors in this area of law. Everybody who's done it has had mentors in this area of law. And I'd love to see more plaintiffs' attorneys doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is different. It is hard. It's a lot more work.
It is.
But it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, it is. And we have very flexible co-counsel agreements because we like a more traditional co-counsel relationship where we share the workload, we share the fee on the case and everything. And, if you do have a case, particularly if you're in an area where there's not a lot of lawyers, like in the more rural parts of Indiana, and you want a more traditional co-counsel relationship, we certainly would be happy to help, or even refer you to someone that does the same thing. We've done the same thing. We've co-counseled on a lot of our civil rights cases with other firms. And so, it always, everything that's good for the client is good for all of us over the course of time.
Yeah. We've all had mentors, and at some point you don't need a mentor anymore. You need to mentor others.
Yeah.
And if it's an area of law that you're passionate about, like I am the civil rights law, I enjoy mentoring people on that and kind of teaching them how to fight that fight.
Yeah, especially since not many people do it.
Right.
So.
Well, and I had those same people do it for me.
Yeah.
And,
the white beards.
Yeah.
That's where the white beards. Someone called me. Did I tell you someone called me a grandpa the other day? I said, no, they're my kids. That's it's funny, dude.
Not that old yet.
Yeah, I'm like, no. I told my mom, and she started cracking up. She thought it was hilarious. I'm like, fuck, man. So he goes, yeah, oh, your grandkids? No, they're mine. So, but, well, on that note, I think we should just, we'll be done.
Yeah.
Chase, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I really
As always.
appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Circle City Conversations. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on any future conversations.